Okay, so I am going to do this. I'm going to try to do this nice and fast. Get myself set up, and here we go. Okay, so what I'm looking to do here is basically go through this Government of Canada application. It's actually available right now. It's closing this evening. So if someone happens to be able to use this, then I'll be really happy about it. But yeah, I'm gonna basically put on the hat of being a person who is applying from the outside of the federal government and how to basically go through, take a quick look through this poster and focus on the items that are most necessary at the first stage in terms of filtering, and then afterwards what you actually need to do to complete the application, and then some nice to knows. Whether or not we get to the strategic stuff, I'm not sure, but I want to at least get through the filter, and if it's not too long, then I'll keep going to the next step in terms of what you need to do. So let's get started. So first and foremost, like I mentioned, this is about skimming through the application to know where you need to focus your information. So if I'm coming from outside of the public service, then what I would want to be doing is obviously looking at salary. So is the salary here something that I'm actually interested in? Next, can I actually apply? Is this something that's actually open to someone like myself who doesn't actually work within the public service? And that's what you look right here at who can apply. And this is persons residing in Canada, Canadian citizens, and permanent residents abroad, which basically means yes, you can certainly apply. So those are done. Do I have enough time? I mentioned already that this one's closing this evening. The extent to which you have enough time is really going to come down to your experience and whether or not you have a done an application before. If you have things that are already prepared, you may have enough time. And then for some other people, it might actually take much longer. So it is something that you'll want to consider to see whether or not you have enough time. And definitely check the time zone as well. Um, if you're not actually in the Pacific time zone, that means you have a little bit extra time, probably have about until 3 a.m. to make this submission. So that's that. Now, while it did say important messages, at this stage, you're not too worried because right now you're just checking to see whether or not this is something you can skim, take a look at, and actually apply to. So of course, education. Do you have the educational requirements? Now it says secondary school diploma, and then it says degree equivalency. In case that's confusing at all, it really just means you have your high school. Okay, if you have your high school diploma for this one, you're good to go. And the next, really the most important part is whether or not you qualify. Now, this is where people sometimes get a little bit tripped up, and it's really important that you pay attention to how the wording is laid out. So I'm just going to take a moment to actually read these ones here. Experience 1, experience working in an occupational health and safety OHS program. 2, experience in providing OHS advice and recommendations. 3, significant experience in researching and interpreting legislation, policies, or directives. Significant experience is defined as depth and breadth of experience normally associated with the performance of those duties on a regular basis for a period of approximately 12 months. However, a shorter duration may be considered based on demonstrated complexity and diversity of work handled, scope of work, and/or level of direct responsibility for a wide variety of complex files or projects. Okay. I read that all out because I think it's really important that you pay attention to the wording. Now, right here, they make mention of 12 months. Even though that's mentioned, the 12 months, you don't actually need a full 12 months of experience for any of these 3 experience factors. Let me explain. Number 1, experience factor 1, it says experience working on an occupational health and safety program. Okay, that's it. There's no mention of how long, right? Number 2, experience in providing OHS advice and recommendations. Again, no mention of duration. And then number 3, significant experience in researching and interpreting legislation, policies, or directives. And then with significant, there's the asterisk. And then even though there's that asterisk here and it says 12 months, and this is a really special poster because they're actually pretty clear about this. It isn't usually this clear. There's a qualifier here. It says, I think it says normally associated. There it is. Normally associated with the performance of those duties on a regular basis for a period of approximately 12 months. So it's normally associated. And again, this doesn't always happen. And so it's one of the reasons why I chose this poster is because it's very clear about the fact that it's not an absolutely necessary piece. And you always want to keep that when you're reading these posters to make sure that the language is that you're clear in your understanding of the language. Whether or not they're clear, that's a whole other story, but you need to make sure that you understand what they're saying. So any duration. The other thing that's also interesting about this one is that it doesn't actually say the period within which that 12 months or the experience itself needs to have taken place. What sometimes happens, often, there'll be a limitation to when you could have obtained the amount of experience that's required. For example, they sometimes say something along the lines of within the last 24 months, within the last 12 months, within the last 3 years. And that's not here. So this is a really, really broad poster. So quite a few people would actually be able to qualify for this one. Okay, normally associated, I mentioned that already. Yeah, when in doubt, be generous. What I mean by that is make sure that you don't screen yourself out. It's their job to screen you out. So if there's an opportunity and you're thinking, oh, maybe I don't have the experience, assume that you do have enough experience and write as much as you possibly can to that effect so that you're not the one screening yourself out. It's really a place where I see people slip up sometimes and they say, oh yeah, well, I don't have that experience. And it comes back to reading what's required very carefully. So another thing that I want to mention here is that if you look at these 3 experience factors, so this one, clearly this position is about occupational health and safety. But if you look at experience number 3, it says experience in researching and interpreting legislation, policies, or directives. It doesn't say what kind of directives, what kind of legislation, or what type of policies. So let's say, for example, you have an experience outside of occupational health and safety, you would actually still meet this requirement. Now, that's not to say that if you do have, experience in OSH that you shouldn't be including it. Of course you should be. However, don't think to yourself like, yeah, well, I have experience doing this, but I haven't actually done it in OSH. It doesn't matter, not for this purpose. You can still get screened in. And that's what's really important here is getting your foot in the door and setting yourself up in such a way that you're able to get the highest score that you possibly can with the experience that you have. Okay, so education, we check that because you have to check that. Experience, we've on that through that sufficiently, at least for now. We'll go on to, what exactly you need to do when you're actually filling that out afterwards. But again, we're screening right now, but this was really the part that I wanted to focus on is making sure that you're reading the language carefully to make sure you're not screening yourself out. And if you're not sure, assume you have sufficient experience and write it well and provide great examples. Okay, so next piece here is language. I didn't highlight that one, but probably because everything is here. Again, quite a few people will be able to apply for this one, at least from what I can tell. Knowledge, at this stage when you're skimming to see whether or not this is something you should be applying for or not, these are usually pieces that are tested at a later date, so we don't need to focus on that. And I think, is there anything else we wanted to filter? No. After that, you're pretty much ready to do the application. Those are the main pieces of information that you need. Now, this is actually a really tight application. It's not very long. Some of these are really, really, really long. And so that's why it's important to take the time to make sure that you really understand the parts of the application that you need to focus on. So yeah, I think I will leave it there and keep this one really short. I'll do a quick overview now just to say again, check for salary to see if it's within the range that you're interested in. Um, Ensure that you're actually able to apply as opposed to external versus internal, what residency requirements might be required. Sometimes it even speaks to where you live, but because this one is all over the place, it's all across Canada, the different places, say it says various locations, then you're good to go. Sometimes that's not necessarily the case. Make sure you check the time zone so that when you're looking to see if you have enough time to do the application, you do. Education, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. This is actually the one that usually sometimes trips people up because it's a secondary school, which is another way of saying high school. So if you have your high school diploma or your GED or anything along those lines, you're good to go, or any other type of equivalency. Let's see here. And then do you qualify? These items here, really make sure that you read the experience factor because they're usually quite literal, right? It's exactly what they say. So don't screen yourself out. Be kind to yourself. Apply, apply, apply. Don't do their job for them. Make them screen you out. Don't screen yourself out on their behalf. And I think I will leave it there. Thank you so much. Another note is if you're looking for some additional resources, which you'll also see on the community page on YouTube, is I'm slowly uploading the different pages of a guide that I've been working on. And I think I might just do a complete dump of all of them on there. So I'm rereading them because I did it some time ago and I'm making sure that the information that's in there is still relevant. And yeah, if you find that helpful, great. Let me know what you think. If you have questions, please let me know. I'm actually going to now check the actual log to see if there's anything that I need to pay close attention to. And no, I think we're good to go. Thank you so much and see you next time.